Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in. It's Joe Caccera with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series, as we move through the new week here, sitting alongside, as I always do on Tuesdays, with Mike. Good to have you back in, Mike.
Good to be back. I had to make sure I got my microphone ready.
Get that mic ready. Speaking of that, Mike is ready to go. Before we get started, we have a great topic for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the most important things. A person getting ready to list their home, seeking out an agent, but more importantly, the questions you want to ask someone like Mike when you're getting ready to put your home on the market. And we hope it's soon because we need some of those homes, don't we? Low inventory.
Yep.
Let's get some of those homes on the market. Mike and I are here to help you do that. We got the turnkey solution for you, right?
Turnkey.
We got the guy that could list your house, and then there's the guy like me that could do the financing. And we can take care of you. So we're here to help you seriously to anything and everything real estate. Before we get started on our topic, though, just a reminder, if you need any help on listing, selling, Mike's here to help you. You could reach him, text or call 408-630-0101, or you can email him at mike@reradiolive.com. On the financing side, if I could help you, get a hold of me at 408-838-9060, or you could email Joe at reradiolive.com. Why don't we, first, Mike, you want to tell us a little bit about the market? I know we were hoping that we could get some more listings. We were talking about, I hope they come on and they're more plentiful, but not so much, huh?
No, it hasn't. It's, usually the post-Super Bowl rush of listings is pretty, it's almost like a tidal wave, but it hasn't been that plentiful this year, I guess you call it. Maybe there'll be a post-Oscars flood or something like that. It's interesting. I'm just looking at stats right now, and this time last year we had about 1,100 listings on the market, and right now we're not even at 900.
Wow.
So, and that's in the entire. I always talk about Santa Clara County because that's the county we work in, and it's Silicon Valley. So, just to give you guys, the background of where this information is coming from in a market like, I don't know if we have people listening all over the country. I don't know if people realize how big this county really is, and the fact that there's not even 900 properties for sale. There's about 400-something thousand taxable properties in the county, and we only have 900 or less on the market. So it's not. It's the listings have not been coming on as quickly as we had thought. It's going to happen. It's just maybe it's going to be a little bit later this year. I don't know.
Well, it is. The market's the market, but I think that what we could do, we'll continue to do, is we'll educate and inform. And I think, we started the show for that reason, and we'll continue to do that. We hope that if you're maybe on the fence, you're thinking about listing your home, Mike could give you some insights. If you're wondering about financing, there is a lot of financing out there. Also, the refinance market, Mike, this has changed some dynamic too. The refinance market, for the most part, is done. And what I mean by that is people still need to refinance, but it's what I call situational. So for years we've had this tick down in interest rates, and then we'd have this flood of people coming to refinance, which is great. It's great for business. People save money. But what it did, it also clogged up kind of the system, and you had to be careful about service levels when you're working on purchases. And now, more and more of the lenders and investors are going to be fighting for fewer deals.
Yeah, absolutely.
With less of the refinance.
Just like the realtors.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's a common play.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the topic today. First part of it is we're going to discuss some of the things, the customer, the potential homeowner could be, the questions they should be asking you when you sit down and talk to them. What are some of the things that would be smart for them to be asking the realtor?
Absolutely. Real quick, before I answer that question, I had one other stat that I forgot to mention earlier, and I wanted to get to that because we look at, a lot of people don't talk about months of inventory, and so what months of inventory means for people out there that aren't in the business, it's basically how long, if nothing else came on the market tomorrow,
okay,
how long would we have as realtors to sell out the rest of the inventory? Right,
2 days.
Yeah, pretty much. Right now we're at about 1.4 months of inventory.
Wow.
So basically it takes
That's
6
amazing.
weeks for realtors to sell off everything in the county.
Uh-huh.
You need like 4 to 6 months of inventory to be a quote unquote
That's
normal
a normal
market. We're at 1.4. We were at 2.1 at this time last year. So that number just really jumped out at me because that's not a lot of time. So
yeah, that's a great statistic. Maybe
Yeah.
we could, before you start on the questions, maybe you could talk a little bit about what a person's listening to the podcast and they're thinking, well, I don't know. I thought about selling my home, but the advantages right now would be what?
The advantages
Top dollar.
Yeah, top dollar and people clamoring to get
Yeah.
houses. I mean, I had a buyer reach out to me this weekend that they're kind of far off in the purchase process, and they're just kind of, they go to open houses here and there and check in with me and let me know what they thought. And he texted me on Sunday, he's like, these open houses are insane. There's like 4,000 people in the house. And I'm like, yeah, that's, it's a product of, there's just not a lot to look at.
Right.
So the buyers get concentrated into each house, and, you have the same buyer pool looking at different types of properties they are. And so he was in disbelief, and I'm like, just don't worry, as you guys get more ready, it's going to ease up a little bit, but it's pretty crazy. So to answer your question, for people that have thought about it, the value in listing it now is that you're going to have less competition in listings. You're going to have more people bidding for your house. I mean, it's pretty simple. Supply and demand.
The other thing that came to me just now too, some of the first, typically the worry, isn't it, Mike, that, well, that's great, I could sell my house for top dollar, but then I have to go compete with the same market, right? But talk a little bit about, you're in the driver's seat. If you're selling a home, you could do rent backs, right? You could negotiate. If you're in that driver's seat, you might be able to negotiate a 60, 90-day rent back or something like that.
It allows you to demand from the buyers what you need to make it happen.
Yeah.
You pretty much can get whatever you want at this point if you have multiple parties that are competing for a property.
Okay.
So you're exactly right in the sense that you could get rent back. I mean, the ultimate situation is if you're moving out of the area.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
it's not like here, the rest of the country and other parts of, a lot of people from California moving to Oregon or Texas, or we're up down south even. It's not as competitive even in San Diego, although that's a harder market too. So, that's the ultimate scenario. If you've thought about getting out of California, which I know a lot of people have, just because they want to cash out and, it's the time to do it. Right. That's the easiest route. But for people that need to buy elsewhere, then, you could definitely, the terms are important. Not only it's about price, but demanding the terms that you need in order to make your next step.
Very good.
Okay,
all right.
So now we sidestepped for like 5 minutes, but let's get
we do that a lot.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we need to cover, like Italian food, pasta? No, let's get back to it.
Yeah, we could talk about pasta. We could do a whole podcast on that. But okay, so how much can I sell my home for? That's the question. When I did this today, I got a call. They from my estate sale guy who he was looking at a property, and then they needed a realtor, so he had me come over and check it out. The first questions you always get is, what do you think my house is worth, and what do you charge commission, right? So
surprise.
Yeah, surprise. And the other thing is, what do you think I need to get? What do you think I need to do to get my this house ready for sale?
Yeah.
And so I'm very straightforward about that because it's they want to know the answers to those questions. So, and a lot of those questions usually get answered in a listing presentation, a full marketing presentation, but if you're working with, any good realtor, they're going to have an idea of what the price is ahead of time, even before seeing it. They know what their commission is, or at least most people do. I'd hope you do as a real estate agent. You know what you charge. But the first question is, how much can I sell my home for? And you really, if you're doing a listing presentation or having an agent do a listing presentation in front of you and your partner or spouse, then this should be a key part of the whole presentation, basically. Now, my presentation consists of 5 different sections. One is about me, one's about my company, one's about the sales process and what's involved in that. Then you have the marketing plan, and then you have the CMA, or the comparative market analysis, the value of the property. So whoever's going to be selling your house, they should know how much you could sell your house for. And that question, it's always an interesting conversation because there's so much data out there. There's the Zillows, there's the Zestimates, there's this and that. The sellers usually have an idea. They know what's going on in their neighborhood. They're the nosy neighbors, just like everybody else. They're going to open houses.
They want to get the next highest.
They want to get the next highest. So they usually have an idea, and sometimes it's out of control. Sometimes the idea is way over the top, and you're unrealistic. Most of the time, they're pretty reasonable. But they're going to have an idea, and then you're going to have the realtor that has an idea. And I always tell clients this: one, nobody knows exactly what the exact value of the house is, because the value of a house is what a buyer is going to come in and pay for the property, and we don't know what that's going to be yet. What we can do is rely on the data and help us create a value for the property. And there's usually two values. There's one value that is the value of the home based on the comparable sales. Okay. Then there's the other value, which is the marketing price. So what I mean by that is, let's say the true value of I think the house is probably, the value is $1,035,000 or $1,015,000. Am I going to push to list it at that price? Right. Probably not. I'm going to push to list it at $999 because that's going to bring in a whole nother subset of buyers that we would miss out on if we if the seller tried to get a little greedy and get that extra $15,000, which they'll probably get more than that if they listed it under $1 million, because then they're going to create a bidding war. Yeah.
Let me ask you something before we take a first quick break here. What happens? You give your listing presentation, and probably you can tell me more than I, but you might have someone that you're competing against that comes and gives the seller a ridiculous number. Yeah. You've done all your homework, and you say this home should sell for 1.2, for example. Yeah. And someone comes in just because they think they want the edge for some reason. I could get 1.5 for this. Yeah, right. I could get 1.5. Don't. Right? How do you try to educate the consumer and hope that they understand that without getting all jacked up about? Yeah,
exactly. You just try to educate them, and then I'm just very blunt about it. Be like, well, call me when you want to. You need your second realtor. Over. Yeah, call me when you need your second realtor and the listing's expired. Okay, and that's basically what I say. And and that's a good question. And I'm not trying to sound, pompous or something like that. But I say, look,
you do your homework.
I do my homework. Yeah. I know what it's going to take to sell it. I'm realistic. I'm being upfront with you, and I'm not going to blow smoke and tell you I'm going to get this ridiculous number. And I'm not going to waste my time either on an overpriced listing. And spending marketing dollars on that and everything else. So, call me when you're ready with the
That's
call me when you need a
when
second.
When you get frustrated with the guy that's lying to you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of that's the thought process.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Mike and I are going to come back and talk a little bit more about some of the questions on listing your property, and then we're going to jump in and talk a little bit about financing and some of the strategic ways. With this market like this, there's some concern about selling and then going to buy. Maybe we could talk a little bit about some ways you might be able to buy a house or get into contract without selling your house right away. All right, we'll be back with you in just a minute.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com.
Hi, this is Joe Kuchera of Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We are your go-to resource for all aspects of real estate, including buying, selling, refinancing, building, and legal and tax advice, and much more. You can subscribe to Real Estate Radio Live podcast on iTunes and Stitcher to listen to an engaging discussion about anything and everything real estate. So make sure you get our app, RE Radio Live, in the iTunes store to follow the show.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. It's Joe Kuchera sitting alongside Mike D'Ambrosio. We are back with you as we are every Tuesday, rolling through the week. Remember, just as a reminder, with you 5 days a week, you can tune in, listen to the podcast. Our focus and objective has always been the same: to educate and inform you, the consumer, to make you a more wise consumer in and around your real estate. So today we're talking about some of the key questions you should be asking someone like Mike as your realtor when you're getting ready to list your home, and some of the things you should be aware of too. Just before we took a break, Mike, we were talking about, I think it's important just to kind of circle back quickly, that if you're listening to this and you're getting ready to list your home, please don't fall for the kind of the bait and switch. And there's a lot of people that may do whatever it takes to try to get that initial listing, even by, let's just call it what it is, BSing, right? I mean, telling you if your home's really worth 1.2 and you've laid out all the data and statistics and it proves that, and some other, comes in or bozo or whatever and says, I could get you 1.5. They're trying to do it just to get, hopefully, temporarily insanity to get the person to make a decision.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they're doing a disservice.
Yeah, they are, and we call that buying a listing. Basically, you're buying a listing as a real estate agent with a price that's frankly not attainable, and so it's just the nature of the business, and I'm sure there's other businesses that deal with the same thing. Yep. But that kind of goes right in line with the second question about how long is it going to take? How long is it going to take to sell my home?
Okay.
And if someone wants to overprice their house, I'm going to tell them it's going to take a long time, right? Because even in a market that's hot like this, if the home is not priced somewhat right and not prepped and looking okay, it's still going to sit. Buyers are not stupid,
right?
And so it still matters that you got to price right, even in a market that's super hot. So how long is it going to take to sell my home is the second question. And because you want to know that, because you need to figure out when you're going to move and maybe how much rent back you need to ask for, or how long the process is going to take, all that type of stuff. And it's easy to I run, a lot of people that listen to the podcast, they hear the stats, and I have all these stats on my multiple listing service, and then I run stats on days on market. I can run that based on, list price to sale price and how long did it take to sell. So what I'm saying is that a realtor, if they know their stuff, they know on average in a neighborhood how long it's taking houses to sell.
Okay.
So like in Willow Glen, for example, the average days on market's like under 2 weeks or something crazy. That would take out some of the outliers. There's always the one or two listings that have been on the market for like 5 months and whatever. But, so you can realtors can search that data and tell you on average, based on the fact, if you price it at this or price it right and do this and that, it's probably going to sell within 2 to 3 weeks or something like that. That, for example. So that's an important question, though, like I said. The third question would be, what unique services can you or your company offer? So like I said in the beginning, there's got to be a portion in there of their presentation that talks about them. Are they qualified? How long they've been doing it? Do they have references? Do they have a team of people helping them? Do they have all of that? You need to find that out about the agent, right? And then your company too. And I know, depending on where they're from, if they're from a big brokerage or a small brokerage, what do those brokerages provide? How do they syndicate their listings? What type of marketing do they provide? Are they going to market the property within the company if it's a bigger company? And on and on. And so that's an important thing. You need to find out what they're going to be doing.
Yeah. We could do another show just on this too, but as I start to think about that question, and you've been doing this a long time, and you're very familiar with the companies within the county here. Is there a significant difference in your mind when someone goes with a branded company?
Yes.
And again, I'm not going to. Let's just say, there's some independent brokerages, right, where you look at the name and you go, I've never heard of that or whatever, and so it doesn't make it right or wrong, but. If someone asked that question, gosh, this guy over here, from, Jim and Joe Real Estate Company is going to list my house for this, and they ask you that question, how do you answer something like that versus the company that you're working for that's got a great name, reputable name, and then also deals with the high-end homes as well?
No, it's a good question, and it's a question that I know very well because I came from my own brokerage before I came to Ontario, so I can talk on that.
You were that guy.
I was that guy. I was that guy. And when I first started, I was at another small family firm, and then I started my own company, which was just me, and now I'm at a big brokerage. And the difference is huge. I mean, the exposure you get within the company, we have 3,000 plus agents in our company, across the Silicon Valley and beyond that I get to market the property to. The marketing firepower that our company has, both online and print, is second to none, and a small brokerage can't even match it. Those are just a couple of examples. I won't get into all of them, but it's really been huge for me.
Yeah. The exposure is a lot more.
Absolutely.
Tenfold.
Yeah.
And then the quality, I would say as well, being part of understanding that myself, the quality of the material, whether it's online or printed matter, is tenfold.
Yes, much better. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say as well.
Definitely.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, we got about 5 minutes or so left, about now financing. There's some,
talk about
we that. We need to get people to get their home listed. If you're on the fence, you're thinking about it, contact Mike. I would say even if you're thinking about, maybe you're not sure, maybe you want to find out all the details, or maybe you want to find out the positives, negatives. I'm a big believer, and I know you are, Mike, in sitting down and unemotionally taking pencil to paper and figuring out if this is the right time for you. Because oftentimes it is a huge emotional decision, but if you could know that and set that aside and sit down with a piece of paper, whether it's with you or a financial planner or CPA, and say, okay, if I sell my home, what am I going to do? Does it make sense? How much down payment? Then what it means for my new property? All these, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and then what people might not realize now is that especially if they've been sitting on their property for years, they've had huge appreciation gains the last couple of years. They might qualify for a house that they might not think they could qualify for in the past, because of the fact that they're sitting on so much more equity than they had before. So Then the other part we'll talk briefly about, again, let's jump back. Let's talk a little bit about financing. Even though rates have come up a little bit, they're gone in terms of if you're out there waiting for the next shoe to drop, and I know rates are going to come back, I can tell you there's a 96% chance they will not get lower. There's always a chance outside, right? Yeah. Something we don't know, uncontrollable happens in the economy. It could happen, but I'm telling you that we follow this data material on a regular basis. There is a 90% chance the rates will go up. There's about a 8 to 10% chance they'll come back down. It's just the way it is. Yeah.
And that's the way the market's going to get. We're going to have to get used to it. And the reason I bring that up is that most of the experts will tell you that there's a really good chance that the Fed will raise the prime at least 2 or 3 more times in this year.
This year, yeah.
Which will have an effect on the mortgage rates.
Absolutely.
Which will have effect on borrowing power. And that's another reason why we would encourage you, if you're on the fence, or if you're one of these people thinking, I just kind of feel like it'd be better to do this in September, October. Yeah. It may not be for a couple different reasons. Yeah. And one of them could be money. And if it's close, again, I'll just give you a quick example. If you're right on the borderline and you're selling your home for $1 million and you're going to go buy a home that's, 1.5, 1.6, and your, debt to income ratio is really on the borderline right now, that difference in a quarter or half interest in interest rate, an increase in interest rate, could make the difference whether that makes sense for you or not.
Talk about a quarter. What does like a quarter of an interest rate mean on a mortgage to someone, qualifying for a mortgage?
$500,000 or $600,000 loan, it's a couple $100, and that's it's $150 to $200 depending if you do the average loan average rate. And I know for some people might be saying, well, it's not going to make a difference. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. But for some, it is. Yeah. It is a difference. Mm-hmm. It could make the difference on, Mike, some people are really budget conscious, and they'll say, when they meet with me, this, I don't want a total payment of more than $4,000 a month. I don't care what it is. I don't care how much I love the home. This is my budget.
Yeah. No, it's true.
And they stick to that. Some people are solid by that. Others will go, I know we want to do that, but we love the home, right? Yeah. So let's do it, even though it's 45. I get it. But there's a difference when the interest rate comes up, and it could be significant. And honestly, the average loan amounts that I deal with are somewhere in the high fives to $625,000 is the average loan amount. That's, for most people that are even someone that's listening to in another state, they're going, are you nuts?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even pay that
really
much for an apartment complex somewhere. But that's where we live. And so the reason we bring that up when we talk about this is, as you're thinking about possibly listing, as you're thinking about, going to buy another home, keep that in your mind. that there's a good chance the rates will be higher towards the end of the year. And if that makes a difference to you, you might want to run the scenario and look. And before we deck out here today, too, we could talk about it another time. We have before. There are options, believe it or not, depending on your financial wherewithal and what's going on, assets. There are all options that you could get into contract with a home to buy without selling your home first. And we're not going to get it more into that
we
today.
We talked about that on the podcast from, was that last week?
I think the
Tuesday,
week before,
Yeah.
And maybe we could go into more detail about that, because I think it's important that some people are nervous about that same reason. Yeah. You know, I'm just fine right now. I'm concerned that, if I sell my home, then what am I going to go do? So we'll talk about some of those options.
Yeah, one other dilemma I think either the real estate community has to figure out or the tax deferral community has to figure out is the big issue for people is paying the higher taxes.
That's true. That's
true.
know,
and I mean, we have Prop 6090 for people that are 55 or older, which they can transfer their tax basis once. But I don't think it's enough. You know, when you have someone that even bought a house 10 or 15 years ago and paying $5,000 or $6,000 in taxes, and then they go buy a $1.5 million property. I mean, their taxes triple at that point. You know, I mean, I get it. It's a factor of buying a bigger home, and you just got to deal with it. You probably are making the money to do it, but the amount of taxes people are paying, especially around here, is kind of crazy if you think about it.
It is crazy, but we live in a crazy world, so welcome to it.
Yeah, there you go.
List your home. Let's go. Come on, we're ready. All right, we're going to have to duck out today. Thanks again for tuning in and listening to Mike and myself. We'll be back with you next week. Until then, take care.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at reradiolive.com.